Chapter 2, Critical Criticism as a Mill Owner, or Critical Criticism as Herr Jules Faucher. After rendering most substantial services to self-consciousness by humiliating itself to the extent of nonsense in foreign languages, and thereby at the same time freeing the world from pauperism, criticism still further humiliates itself to the extent of nonsense in practice and history. It masters English questions of the day and gives us a genuinely critical outline of the history of English industry. Criticism, which is self-sufficient and complete and perfect in itself, naturally cannot recognize history as it really took place, for that would mean recognizing the base mass in all its mass-like mass nature, whereas the problem is precisely to redeem the mass from its mass nature. History is therefore freed from its mass nature, and criticism, which has a free attitude to its object, calls to history, "You ought to have happened in such and such a way." All the laws of criticism have retrospective force. Prior to the decrees of criticism, history behaved quite differently from how it did after them. Hence, mass-type history, so-called real history, deviates considerably from critical history, as it takes place in Heft 7 of the Literature Zeitung from page 4 onwards. In mass-type history there were no factory towns before there were factories, but in critical history, in which, as already in Hegel, the son begets his father, Manchester, Bolton and Preston were flourishing factory towns before factories were even thought of. In real history, the cotton industry was founded mainly on Hargreaves' jenny and Arkwright's throstle, Crompton's mule being only an improvement of the spinning jenny according to the new principle discovered by Arkwright. But critical history knows how to make distinctions. It scorns the one-sidedness of the jenny and the throstle, and gives the crown to the mule as the speculative identity of the extremes. In reality, the invention of the throstle and the mule immediately made possible the application of water power to those machines, but critical criticism sorts out the principles lumped together by crude history and makes this application come only later as something quite special. In reality, the invention of the steam engine preceded all the above-mentioned inventions. According to criticism, it is the crown of them all and the last. In reality, the business ties between Liverpool and Manchester in their present scope were the result of the export of English goods. According to criticism, they are the cause of the export, and both are the result of the proximity of the two towns. In reality, nearly all goods from Manchester go to the continent via Hull, according to criticism via Liverpool. In reality, all grades of wages exist in English factories, from is 6d to 40 seconds and more, but according to criticism only one rate is paid, 11 seconds. In reality, the machine replaces manual labor. According to criticism, it replaces thought. In reality, the association of workers for wage rises is allowed in England, but according to criticism it is prohibited, for when the mass wants to allow itself anything it must first ask criticism. In reality, factory labor is extremely tiring and gives rise to specific diseases. There are even special medical works on them. According to criticism, excessive exertion cannot be a hindrance to work, for the power is provided by the machine. In reality, the machine is a machine. According to criticism, it has a will, for as it does not rest, neither can the worker, and he is subordinated to an alien will. But that is still nothing at all. Criticism cannot be content with the mass-type parties in England. It creates new ones, including a factory party, for which history may be thankful to it. On the other hand, it lumps together the factory owners and the factory workers in one massive heap. Why bother about such trifles? And decrees that the factory workers refuse to contribute to the anti-corn law leagues, not out of ill will or because of Chartism, as the stupid factory owners maintain, but merely because they were poor. It further decrees that with the repeal of the English Corn Laws, agricultural labourers will have to put up with a lowering of wages, in regard to which, however, we must most submissively remark that that destitute class cannot be deprived of another penny without being reduced to absolute starvation. It decrees that the working day in English factories is 16 hours, although a silly, uncritical English law has fixed a maximum of 12 hours. It decrees that England is to become a huge workshop for the world, although the uncritical mass of Americans, Germans and Belgians are ruining one market after another for the English by their competition. Lastly, it decrees that neither the propertied nor the non-propertied classes in England are aware of the centralization of property and its consequences for the working classes. Although the stupid Chartists think they are well aware of them, the Socialists maintain that they expounded those consequences in detail long ago, and even Tories and Whigs like Carlyle, Allison and Gaskell have proved their knowledge of them in their works. Criticism decrees that Lord Ashley's 10-hour bill is a half-hearted just milieu measure, and Lord Ashley himself a true illustration of constitutional action, while the factory owners, the Chartists, the landowners, in short, all that makes up the mass nature of England, have so far considered this measure as an expression, the mildest possible one admittedly, of a downright radical principle, since it would lay the axe at the root of foreign trade, and thereby at the root of the factory system. Nay, not merely lay the axe to it, but cut deeply into it. Critical criticism knows better. It knows that the 10-hour question was discussed before a commission of the lower house, although the uncritical newspapers try to make us believe that this commission was the House itself, a committee of the whole House. But criticism must needs do away with that eccentricity of the English Constitution. Critical criticism, which itself begets its opposite, the stupidity of the mass, also produces the stupidity of Sir James Graham. By a critical understanding of the English language, it puts things in his mouth which the uncritical Home Secretary never said, just to allow critical wisdom to shine brighter in comparison with his stupidity. Graham, according to criticism, says that the machines in the factories wear out in about 12 years, whether they work 10 hours a day or 12, and that therefore a 10-hour bill would make it impossible for the capitalists to reproduce in 12 years through the work of their machines the capital laid out on them. Criticism proves that it has thus put a false conclusion in the mouth of Sir James Graham, for a machine that works 1/6 of the time less every day will naturally remain usable longer. However correct this observation of critical criticism against its own false conclusion, it must on the other hand be conceded that Sir James Graham's 10-hour bill the machine to work quicker in the proportion that its working time was reduced, and that in that case the time when it would be worn out would be the same, 12 years. This must all the more be acknowledged as the acknowledgment contributes to the glory and exaltation of criticism, for only criticism both made the false conclusion and then refuted it. Criticism is just as magnanimous towards Lord John Russell, to whom it imputes the wish to change the political form of the state and the electoral system. From this we must conclude either that criticism's urge to produce stupidities is uncommonly powerful, or that Lord John Russell must have become a critical critic within the past week. But criticism only becomes truly magnificent in its fabrication of stupidities when it discovers that the English workers, who in April and May held meeting after meeting, drew up petition after petition, and all for the 10-hour bill, and displayed more agitation throughout the factory districts than at any time during the past 2 years, that those workers take only a partial interest in this question, although it is evident that legislation limiting the working day has also occupied their attention. Criticism is truly magnificent when it finally makes the great, the glorious, the unheard-of discovery that The apparently more immediate help from the repeal of the Corn Laws absorbs most of the wishes of the workers and will do so until no longer doubtful realization of those wishes practically proves the futility of the repeal. Proves it to workers who drag anti-Corn Law agitators down from the platform at every public meeting, who have seen to it that the Anti-Corn Law League no longer dares to hold a public meeting in any English industrial town, who consider the League to be their only enemy, and who, during the debate of the 10-hour bill, as nearly always before in similar matters, had the support of the Tories. Criticism is superb, too, when it discovers that the workers still let themselves be lured by the sweeping promises of the Chartist movement, which is nothing but the political expression of public opinion among the workers. Criticism is superb, too, when it realizes, in the depths of its absolute spirit, that the two party groupings, the political one, and that of the landowners and mill owners, no longer wish to merge or coincide. It was so far not known that the party grouping of the landowners and the mill owners, because of the numerical smallness of either class of owners and the equal political rights of each, was so comprehensive that it was completely identical with the political party groupings, and not their most consistent expression, their peak. Criticism is splendid when it suggests that the anti-Corn Law Leaguers do not know that, ceteris paribus, a drop in the price of bread must be followed by a drop in wages, so that all would remain as it was. Whereas these people expect that, granted there is a drop in wages and a consequent lowering of production costs, the result will be an expansion of the market. This, they expect, would lead to a reduction of competition among the workers, and consequently wages would still be kept a little higher in comparison with the price of bread than they are now. Freely creating its opposite, nonsense, and moving in artistic rapture, criticism, which only 2 years ago exclaimed criticism speaks German, theology speaks Latin, has now learnt English and calls the estate owners Landeiner, the factory owners Mühleiner. In English, a mill means any factory with machinery driven by steam or water power, and the workers' Hände. Instead of Einmischung, it says Interferenz, and in its infinite mercy for the English language, the sinful mass nature of which is abundantly evident, it condescends to improve it by doing away with the pedantry with which the English place the title Sir before the Christian name of knights and baronets. Where the Mass says Sir James Graham, it says Sir Graham. That criticism reforms English history and the English language out of principle, and not out of levity, will presently be provided by the thoroughness with which it treats the history of Herr,